There it is. Normally I feel like we start these by saying we're back, but this time we actually kind of are because it's been, 3 weeks since we recorded
At
one?
least. We've been on the move.
Yeah, we have. I think that was like one of our biggest fears when we started this was like, well, when we start getting more busy as the year goes on, it's going to be tougher to record these, but that's one thing we wanted to make a priority. And I think we got a little dose of a reality check this last 2 weeks.
Right. There's good problems and bad problems.
Exactly.
And being so busy that it's tough to get to the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take that problem.
I will too.
Yeah. How you been?
Good.
Yeah.
It's finally a fall. It went from like 90 to 60 yesterday to today.
Literally overnight in Minnesota. Yes. It was almost 90 degrees here yesterday and today. Yeah. Is it 60?
63.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
But which hopefully you guys are watching this the day after we record. If not, it'll be the next week. But
yeah, right. Yeah.
How are you guys doing? Huh?
I can hear him say, "We missed you."
Exactly. Right. Hold on.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah.
Keep talking to him.
Keep talking to him.
Yep.
So we've been north, we've been south, and just about everywhere in between. Business has been very solid. I think that there's some good dynamics of post-pandemic, which has created some enthusiasm and some excitement for people, wanting to get back and work on, strengthening the relationships now that it seems like we're back to kind of an original groove. There's also some kinks that, we've been helping people work through. And then obviously the economy, who knows what the deal is, the factor of inflation, things like that, creating some uncertainty. So all of those things have created some nice opportunities for us to be busy and to help a bunch of people out. Yeah,
exactly. I feel like some things have shifted too. I've been diving a lot more into the customer experience.
Yeah.
And some of that involves the internal customer experience, which would be the employees.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that has a little bit to do with the topic we're going to do today. As we mentioned in the last podcast, which feels like eons ago, but just been a couple weeks. Yeah. Apologies.
Yeah. Not really.
Yeah. It was, we did communication, energy, relationships, relationships part 2. Part 2. And then the last pillar of the business is commitment. So that's what we're going to talk about today is commitment.
Yep. And the reason the commitment got on the radar when the business got started was, a couple of incidents that happened, I don't know, 20 years apart, maybe not quite 20 years. The first one was at my wedding when Father Dale welcomed everybody to the marriage ceremony and said, "Isn't it a great day that we're going to celebrate this wonderful yes that's being offered between the bride and the groom, and isn't that a great day that we're all here to witness this wonderful lifelong yes that is being offered to each other." And then in kind of dramatic fashion, he walks to the other side of the altar and he looks out at the congregation and says, "Do you think these two have any idea how many no's that it's going to take to support this one yes?" And so one of the things we want to talk about as far as commitment is that there's the initial yes when we make a commitment, which in some cases is the easiest part of commitment, is to say yes, but it's the inevitable no's that it takes to support that one yes that makes it challenging to live up to a commitment. And then the other thing has to do with the conversation I had with somebody. I was talking to them and they just look exhausted, and they were talking about this, that, and the other thing, and they said, "I just feel like I guess I'm just overcommitted." An exhausted person telling me that they're overcommitted, and I thought in that moment, no, you're not. You're overcompliant.
Yes,
you're doing too many things for other people's reasons, because when we're committed, we have more energy, more enthusiasm.
I feel like I can, almost, I guess maybe a little bit relate to that being like so type A. So obviously everybody knows who knows me knows I'm very type A, very to-do list oriented, very, action item oriented. And a lot of times I slip into that. And that is definitely where burnout occurs for me.
I can almost hear Nicole saying, "Heck yeah."
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep. And it's just one of those things where also we've talked about on this channel is love languages. My love language is acts of service.
Yeah.
And so dangerous, lethal combination of those two things being type A, and because I have a mile long to-do list at all times, and I want to get it all done because I want to, get things done for us and business. I want to get things done at home so my wife doesn't have to. I want to get things done so other people don't have to take care of them, or that so the relationships that I have can like move forward, whether it's business or personal, whatever. It's like I'm constantly feeling like I'm needing to say yes to things or do things or whatever. So there's this compliance thing where it's not always things I want to do, but I'm like, well, I got to get it done anyways, or they want me to do it, so I'm going to do it anyways, or whatever. So it's super compliant because I'm not always committed to doing those things. Otherwise, like you said, I'd feel more fulfilled with those things.
Well, there is a duality in what you're saying, right? Because you've got a love language of service, which that's your primary language, if you will. And so that is the way that you express,
exactly.
Yourself or affection or commitment or whatever. And so that's a good thing because then you are committed because that's your value or your language. The other thing is that if you're feeling exhausted about it, that's the flip side of that, right? Is that if you're getting exhausted and worn out and stressed, maybe you actually are not doing it out of your type A. Yeah. You're doing it because you think that's what other people want. And that's really at the top of this, a couple minutes into it, just want you to consider right now, 5-6 minutes into this broadcast, what gives you energy? Yeah. What is it that you would do for free? What is it that keeps you up late at night where you're dead dog tired, but yet you've got the energy to do, and I'm not talking about watching TV or other extracurricular activity. Yeah. I'm talking about those things that you do, just because you're so energized. Those are the things that are life-giving. Yeah. That you're probably very committed to, those type of relationships where you can talk to somebody and hours flies by and it seems like it's been just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Steve, because a lot of people that are going to watch this, right? You're going to be an owner or an executive or maybe just an employee of a business, and you're wondering, how can you be more committed? What are the ways you can be more committed, both in the work aspect, but also your personal life? Does it have to be just things that empower you?
Yeah. That's very, it's not just a simple question to answer. I think you have to start with what are the gifts and talents that, the God-given gifts that you have, because in many cases, those gifts are things that it feels energizing. We feel content. We feel, happy when we share or express those gifts. And typically in expressing those gifts, we're doing those things out of commitment, because it feels good to us. We like to feel good. All the brain chemicals, all that other stuff makes us feel good for doing it. So consider what it is that makes you uniquely you, those gifts, and figure out how those are getting expressed currently, the time you're investing in activities and tasks and duties and responsibilities and relationships. And that will help you figure out, what it is that you're truly committed to right now.
Yeah. One thing that we've done for clients before is kind of a creative exercise to kind of get people warmed up to certain meetings, especially brainstorming meetings, whiteboard session type meetings, is Me Inc. Yeah. Right. And it's something we developed, and it's essentially, it's like, if you were a business, like you, Me Inc., what would be like your, three UVPs, if you will, your three signature moves, your unique value propositions. If you had to make yourself, which a lot of people do, but I mean, you as a business, if you had to have, an Instagram or, whatever profile, and you had to, a lot of people on their Instagram, their profile, their section will have info just about them, what describes them, what's maybe, something like that. You got something?
I was just looking on here because you did that in a meeting with a client a few months ago.
Yep.
And I did it live. I'd never seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it down on my phone because that Me Inc. thing, I was actually kind of proud of myself for what I came up with, because it was a very succinct, I don't know, what do you call it? A description of who I see.
And that's the point, is for people to think of, if they had to boil everything down, what are the three things? Yeah. 3 points, items, whatever, characteristics, description, 3 things that you would say that describe you as a person.
Yeah. And you had gardening
personally, professionally. Yep. Yeah. It was tough for me to narrow down type 3, but that's the point of the exercise, because you think about the personal things, your hobbies, things like that. Like for me, gardening and running, being creative, that is a big part of my identity. Those couple things, those are 3 right there. However, there's also, a professional side, other things that aren't necessarily hobbies, but a lot of people know me for my dogs and the relationship side. A lot of people know me because of my wife, things like that, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that define you, but if you had to narrow it down to 3 very, very unique things, what would it be? And oftentimes those are the things you're going to be very committed to.
Yeah. So, I think that brings up I like how you said.
Well, I want to know what your 3 things are too.
I couldn't find them. I'll have to, I wish I could while we were live, but, you talk about people know you for your dogs for you, and your wife for you. And that for me, I don't think there's a bigger commitment for me. And I think for a lot of people, and that's that life partner, that's the biggest commitment that people make. And one of the things that I think people need to understand and be committed to is that those relationships, when you're committed, when you're truly committed, and you hit those bumps in the road, or you're having a tough time, or there's conflict, or you lose the passion or something like that, commitment manifests itself in those moments when you know that in those tough moments, those bumps, that's when you grow closer together. And some people think, oh, well, I must not be committed, or they must not be committed because I'm not feeling it. Commitment's a choice. As much as it's an expression, as we said a minute ago, it's also a choice that says, no, I made a commitment. I'm going to say yes to this today in this way. I said yes to it, initially years or months or weeks ago, but in this moment, I'm going to say yes. And this is how that commitment gets itself expressed. Yeah.
I feel like commitment shows up in a lot of different ways in our lives. Just like you said, you have to choose to be committed to things sometimes every day.
Right. The other thing, as you're thinking, or did you have?
No, we'll keep going. I'll remember.
A lot of times we get asked, how do we get buy-in?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not trying to negatively judge anybody that's asked us that in the past. What?
No, keep going. Finish your thought. I just realized, a total side note, this is episode 30. I'm Adam.
Yeah. And I'm Steve. Yeah. As if they didn't know already.
I know. Or is it episode 29? I don't even know anymore. Oh, that's too funny. Anywho, forgot the intro again.
Right.
But as you were saying, I was thinking about commitment again. And that's funny.
So you weren't committed to this conversation at that
moment.
Oh,
man. I was thinking about 10 million other things.
Yeah. When people say, I can't get my kids bought in, I can't get the team bought in, I can't get this other department bought in, you don't always need commitment, right? Sometimes, obviously, it's a lot easier sometimes for some people to get compliance because you can just manage by fear and intimidation, threaten, scare the hell out of people and get their compliance. Compliance is much more efficient to get, but commitment is there's a much better return on investment.
Longer lasting.
Right. And so getting buy-in, when people say that, I think they mean commitment, but what they're really asking most times is compliance.
Yeah, just go along with it.
Right. And just make sure that you understand when you're thinking about this game of commitment versus compliance, which one do you really need
in that moment?
Exactly. And if you need commitment, guess what? It's going to take some time.
It will.
It's like investing, right? You don't get your compound interest the first year.
I think you need to say that one a little louder for the people in the back.
Yeah, right.
Commitment takes time. Yeah. The other thing, the side note about the whole buy-in thing, if you've heard buy-in float around your business a lot, it's one thing I've had to face many, many times in the past couple of years. I feel like there's even more like usage of buy-in ever since the pandemic happened. Yeah. When you be cognizant of when you use buy-in or somebody uses buy-in around you, because with buy-in, right, when somebody says or uses it or you use it, buy-in implies that you're selling something. So when you're saying I need to get buy-in on this, is it you have to sell something to someone because they might not want it, or is there something wrong with it? If it's a great idea or if it's something that is very positive for the business, right, buy-in shouldn't be your choice of words because you shouldn't have to sell that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And it's, as we've talked about, the difference between push and pull.
Yep.
Getting buy-in and selling is a push. Engaging people in a conversation, gaining commitment is a pull.
Exactly. Great point.
And to gain commitment, you want to find out where the other person is. And sometimes, like marriages, for example, one of the spouses will say, I just need you to do this for me. And And then the person says, okay, fine. I'll do it for you. I'm not going to like it, but I'll do it. And in some cases, the spouse who wants the buy-in will say, fine.
Yeah.
I got your buy-in. I don't care if you're miserable or whatever, But then other times we're like, I just need you to do this for me. They are asking for commitment. I want you to do this for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to feel good about it.
Yeah.
Because you're committed to me.
Yes.
And so I'm asking you to do this thing and feel good about us in doing this one thing. And that's true commitment. And so sometimes we have to, again, in that moment, we have to think about that initial yes
Mm-hmm.
and recommit to the original commitment by saying yes in that moment.
That brings up a good point, and I had two things. The first one, so we've talked a lot about professional ways of commitment, personal ways of commitment. To that one you just talked about, that personal way of commitment, to kind of take it a step further, when you're thinking about the personal commitments in your life, especially maybe with your significant other, know that you shouldn't be keeping score either. Right. And I think you've touched on this before in some of the, speaking engagements you've been a part of, and how it's not that you're trying to give 50-50 in relationships. It's 100% both ways, 110% both ways. You're truly committed to it. So it doesn't matter if things are super equal all the time. It's because you're committed to that relationship and that significant other.
Yes.
So there's no keeping score. There's no, well, I'll do this if you do that, or I have to buy into this. Then you better buy into something else. Just don't keep score. It's 110% because you're committed to that. That's what true commitment looks like. You want to...
Yeah, no, I mean, that whole description you just said, we've morphed from commitment into just 100% negotiation. And, let's be honest. I mean, some relationships, and this isn't for any of us to judge, that can work if they're committed to, negotiating their way through the relationship, and that's what serves them, then, go for it. But a lot of times with commitment, you can make a lot more frequent commitments to things that are smaller in scope, size, and overall weight. But then sometimes there's big, heavy commitments, like kids and, financial investments and where we're going to live and, so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to touch with as we kind of wrap things up is I just wanted to ask you a question. When the pillars of the business came to be, what made you want commitment as one of them? How did commitment come about?
It came because of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, it's, stuff happens in life where, you get to be older, I guess, and you look back and you think, gosh, I don't know where that came from. I'd love to say that I chose to have, having a life partner as kind of my priority, number one thing in life, but it just kind of evolved. And so when it came time for the business, and Angie and I were building the business, it just seemed like a natural thing to put in there. Out of the 4 pillars, commitment is by far like the squishiest component to talk with clients about. However, it's the most frequent thing that torments relationships, obviously, that's the heart of everything, but having people be committed in the relationship rather than just showing up for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Being committed to processes rather than just doing the bare minimum possible to do whatever the company wants. I just think that the overall quality of a person's life is them being absolutely crystal clear. What am I committed to for me? And I can't think of a meaningful person in my life that I know that isn't selflessly committed to other people and serving other people. Being very selective. Can't serve everybody.
Yeah.
But I just think that is a big choice that we have to make, because it is a choice to be committed and then to live that commitment every day, because it's so easy once you make the initial yes. And let's face it, it's very in vogue to bail out on commitments and start over again, and I need a fresh start.
Yeah.
More than 50% of marriages ended divorce, blah, blah, blah. Lots of people have broken commitments. I have. But that's probably more of an answer than you want.
No,
it's I just think that whole making a commitment to another person and sticking by them and sticking by that commitment. And most of all, don't let yourself down.
Yeah.
Stick to that commitment you made. You will be better off. So will the other people that you committed to. But first and foremost, you'll be better off when you stick to that commitment that you make for yourself.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end this. I mean, sticking to those commitments, finding out what those commitments are, finding out what your unique value propositions are for yourself, your me Inc. Find out what you're committed to and stick to those commitments.
For sure. And last thing is if you're finding yourself, Allison talks about gut punch. There have been moments in her life where something happens, or she's, she has friendships or relationships or things like that, and there's just this gut punch. Listen to your body. Listen to your gut. Listen to your heart. And that's a great barometer on what you're committed to, or when those commitments get sideways or they're inappropriate.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
It's good to be back with you.
It is. Another one soon again here.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.